There we are. We are live.
We're live.
Good evening, everyone.
My
We are
restart
talking.
got just in time.
Yeah, we are talking detectives.
Banachek and
Becoming?
Columbo.
Oh, okay.
Those detectives. Not
Ah,
Batman.
no.
Batman's a scientist.
hmm Or Harry McGraw. Do you remember Harry McGraw?
I do not remember Harry McGraw. Who?
I do not either.
It was one of the. One of the guys from Law and Order.
Okay.
The older one. Before that, he started as a. It was a character, somewhat recurring character in Murder She Wrote,
Ah.
and then graduated to a spin-off series, which lasted for one season.
Huh. As far as TV detectives go, I'm a Veronica Mars fan. That was a good show. I don't know if you've ever seen that one.
No.
I did. I don't know if I watched it when it came out or that was something I revisited later.
Ah, okay. I was
Chances
watching
are-
it when it came out.
Chances are I revisit it later.
Yeah. It became popular a few years after. It was only 2 seasons, I think.
Yes.
Jerry Orbach, that's the guy who played Harry McGraw.
Oh, okay.
Jerry Orbach. An old song and dance man. One of the books I finally finished reading this week, I don't know when I got this, either for Christmas or last Christmas. I don't really remember. But it's 3 Rocks, the story of Ernie Bushmiller, the man who created Nancy, by Bill Griffith, the cartoonist of Zippy the Pinhead. What does he say? The latest graphic novel masterpiece from the creator of Zippy the Pinhead, Invisible Ink, and Nobody's Fool. And let me give you a little look at it. There you go. And it's got some sample. It's got some samples of Nancy, him drawing about Ernie Bushmiller. There's some samples of Nancy in there.
Mm-hmm.
And I gotta say, I have not read a lot of Bill Griffith stuff. Never being a Zippy the Pinhead man. I hardly ever saw it. Happy summer to you too, Tit Goblin. But I gotta say, he did a really nice job with this, especially because of the fact that Ernie Bushmiller was really boring. He didn't have an exciting life. He spent his days doing the Nancy strip. I mean, that's about it. But he had kind of an interesting beginning in that I guess he had a bit of a charmed life because, where does it say here? In 1919, at the age of 14, Ernie convinced his parents to let him drop out of high school and apply for a job. He asked to sign on as a crew member on a steamship line. When that didn't pan out, he looked for work as a copy boy at the New York World. New York World was one of the big New York newspapers at the time. And it says, the New York World was the first U.S. newspaper to reach a circulation of 1 million. So at 14 years old, he kind of hits the big time. I was personal office boy for Alexander Wolcott, Haywood Braun, Philip P. Adams, Walter Lippmann, and many other immortals, Ernie wrote. As the years went by, he continued, I became their personal friends. Ernie felt the Lord had tapped me on the shoulder. His salary was $9 a week. So he's working as an office boy at the New York World, and he gravitates towards they had a cartooning bullpen at the New York World, where all the cartoonists and illustrators at work in the bullpen, the art department of the World, included Ed Harry, Hageson, who later became a close friend of Bushmuller, Penny, and so he just kind of learned cartooning, working. Here's a shot of the bullpen of New York World and the people working there. Hold on, I like these couple of pages. Here they all are at the New York World, working in the bullpen. And he just kind of became a cartoonist. And at one point, the Nancy cartoon, for those of you who don't know, started out not starring Nancy. It was her Aunt Fritz. Fritzy Ritz, was that her name? She was the original star. She was a flapper. That was the whole thing. It was the 1920s. It was a comic strip about a flapper. By the end of 1920, he was doing illustration assignments for Sunday World magazine. So he was what? If he started there in 1919, at 15, he started doing cartoons. Then on March 3rd, 1921, which puts him at 16, Bushmuller got this strip idea by Sidney Barrett. I want you to work up the art. I need it toot sweet. Bring it. So at 16, he's doing his own strip for World Sunday World, and it's kind of crazy. And then let's see, what year was it? And then somebody had left the Fritzy Ritz comic. He'd been ghosting for other stuff. Someone where? Oh, he did a boxing manager strip. Let me see what year. May 1925, spring arrived in New York, and with it a surprising, life-changing opportunity for the 19-year-old cartoonist, who's got like 5 years of cartooning under his belt at 19.
Amazing.
What's that? Larry Whittington's jumping ship for King Features. What are we going to do, Marcus? We can't let Fritzy Ritz die just because Whitting is gone. It's a popular strip. I know. No. Bushmuller, had lunch yet? And so it's like, so the boss takes him out to lunch. And it's like, what would you think about taking over the Fritzy Ritz, Bushmuller? He's like, I'd say yes. 19 years old, and he's handed a big syndicated comic strip at the New York World. It's like crazy. But and the rest of his life was spent doing comic strips. It's like he didn't do much else. Have you guys read much, Nancy?
Only stuff here and there over the years. Maybe an occasional coffee table book would pop up.
Right.
And that'll have some nasty strips in it. I don't think as far as I'm aware of, I don't think I ever went out and bought any of the trade paperbacks of Nancy. But I'm sure I read one or two here and there.
Right.
Because I'm aware of Nancy. I'm aware of
everybody's aware of Nancy.
So it's like she's always been around. So it was like, I know I've read some strips passing by because it would pop up. Like, oh, Nancy, and then read it, but I never did like a deep dive.
It's nobody's favorite strip,
right?
It's funny because like and Bushmuller even comments on it as Earl. I think the actual, because he was doing Fritzy Ritz for a while, and then it kind of turned into Nancy. But I think by the late 30s, it had turned into Nancy. And also by the late 30s, there was sort of intellectuals and cultural people who really liked Nancy and saw more in Nancy than was actually there. You can get people to kind of wax poetic about Nancy, and
I mean, like Dennis Kitchen.
A little bit like Bill Griffith too, though he didn't wax too poetic. He occasionally delved into that, but he mentioned it and covered it. But like, it is very clear from the Ernie Bushmuller quotes in here, there is nothing deep to Nancy. He even said at times he wasn't writing Nancy for the intellect. He was writing Nancy for the everyday Joe who wanted to read a comic strip and be amused for a couple of minutes. And it was interesting the way he worked on it too. What do you call it? The snapper. he'd work from the last panel backwards to the first panel. Actually, what he would really do was come up with the last panel and then come up with the panels leading to it. So what he called the snapper was the end joke, or some visual gag. Like the example they give in here of it is that there's a picture of Sluggo holding a giant handgun, a handgun that's bigger than Sluggo. And that to him is the snapper. That's the visual image, the funny thing. Now he's got to figure out how Sluggo that ended up, and he's got a gag with a steamroller rolling over a handgun. That's how Sluggo ended up. And that's how he wrote these. He'd come up with that end image first, the snapper, and then right to that point, which I found, which you could really see happening when you read the Nancy strips. You're like, oh, that makes sense now, because they always end on some crazy panel.
Right. Fascinating.
Let's see. What do we got here? Tit Goblin. I read a few for better or worse this week because it's Canadian slice of life, but it was a bit dull and conservative for me. I've read some better or worse over the years. It's always been okay. I haven't read it in a long time. High five, peeps. High five, Missing Mars. But the real tell of how boring Ernie Bushmiller's, like, this is a really good, worth a read if you want to read just something about a cartoon, And I love the historical aspect. But and Bill Griffith did a terrific job making it interesting. But at one point in here, where is it? The Beckett Bushmiller letters, 1952 to 1953. So it's the story of Ernie Bushmiller's,
Not me.
Not him solo, me solo. That's the story of Samuel Beckett and Ernie Bushmiller having a correspondence. And they're sort of, and Beckett is like sort of wanting to create Nancy strips. So he's writing back and forth with Bushmiller on sort of on creating Nancy strips. Then we get to the end of it, and it says, where is it? Ahem, Griffey here. What you have just read over the last 11 pages is a work of fiction. That's right. It was all written by essayist A.S. Hamrah and first published in Hermeneut magazine number 15 in 1999. Hermenaut. Might be a French magazine. Many believed the letters were real, and perhaps many others wanted to believe they were real. Were you fooled too? That's like the most interesting part of Bushmiller's life was fiction. There is nothing as interesting as like, but like it. And then he became it. What's interesting is he also he didn't own Nancy. So they mentioned that, I mean, he was well off. They mentioned that in the 1970s, he was making about $4,000 a week from the strip, which is $200,000 a year. I mean, that's a good living in the 1970s. But that was nowhere near Peanuts money or Garfield money or, something like that. Do you know, on all through the 80s and 90s, on the lists of highest paid entertainers, Charles Schultz was always number one. Like, of all the actors, musicians, whoever, Charles Schultz made more money than all of them because of the Peanuts licensing. I remember seeing the number, I think sometime in the early 90s, he was making $120 million a year from Peanuts licensing. I mean, crazy.
So, I'm not surprised, but I didn't know about it.
Yeah.
But as you say it, it's like, yeah, that makes sense.
It makes sense, right?
It makes a lot of sense, but wow.
So he wasn't making that kind of money, but he was well off. He had assistants help him. And he was another one of these guys who moved to Stamford, Connecticut when he could in the 50s or whatever it was. Yeah, Jim Davis cleaned up too in the 80s. Yeah, he's still cleaning up.
Yeah.
Tip Goblin. Let's see. Graphic Man is here. Is there a similar book about Henry, the bald kid that didn't talk? I would like to find out its history. Don't know if you gentlemen knew of such a project. No, I don't. I've never heard of a book about Henry. I know
No.
Henry.
Right.
But,
I know Henry. I probably
yeah.
read more Henry
Henry
than
was
Nancy.
Then Nancy, yeah.
But
Henry was a silent strip, wasn't
Yeah, which made it easy for syndication abroad because you didn't have to translate. So
Right,
Henry
right.
is better known outside North America than a lot of the more famous American strips. Like
okay.
nobody around here knows Doonesbury, for example.
Right.
right.
That
And
makes sense.
yeah, I have not seen a book
About Henry. No.
Carl Thomas Anderson created Henry. He was pretty old when Henry started.
Ah. Yeah,
'Cause
like
he was already he was born in the mid 19th century.
and there's a nice little epilogue by Bill Griffith. This is just like all the Nancy characters in sort of an old age home. So they're just living out their lives in this old age home, being the Nancy character. That was just kind of the epilogue to it. So that was good. So a terrific, like I said, I have not read much Bill Griffith anything, but this is he did a really, really nice job with this. Just sort of capturing, because all Ernie Brooks Miller did was make up Nancy. I mean, he spent most of, that's what he loved to do best, is make up Nancy strips. You know, he had a wife. I don't even know if he had, I don't think he even mentioned he had kids. But he had a wife. They lived in Connecticut. Later on, they mentioned he had one friend. A guy used to come over and started out as sort of his doing some business stuff for him, then ended up being his friend and taking care of business stuff for him. He took care of the estate after they were both gone too. But it's like he really got a nice graphic novel out of a boring cartoonist's life. Because he, like I said, he got his, you know, his big break at 19 and then just spent the rest of his life making comic strips.
And that's the thing, if with comic strips, I learned this working at Marvel, that it easily becomes just your day job.
Yeah.
So when does it get exciting? Is when people would visit and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's just the same day, and I joke about it because it's like, when I was doing art returns, it was just art comes in, art went out. It was really just organizing all that stuff. It got exciting when people would visit. Because X name artists would come by and visit, or and then even that, after a while, we had our regulars that would visit all the time, so it just became another employee popping by. So that kind of, in a way, loses its luster, and it becomes like another part of the day.
And I imagine for those artists coming by, that was the highlight of their day.
Probably because they got out of the house for a little while.
Got out of the house, got to talk to people.
Yeah. Then their neck was actually standing upright for once.
But yeah, I really enjoyed this one. And he made the closest thing he got to doing anything resembling the real world was in the late 50s and early 60s. He started making fun of hippies and beats. That was about it. Because as you might imagine, he was a bit conservative in terms of
if he's willing to do a comic about a flapper, he has to. Yeah. Because even in the 1920s, flappers were sort of the spoiled rich kid. They were the spoiled rich kids.
Yeah.
And that's when he was really young.
Blondie started as a flapper, didn't she? No, it wasn't.
Yeah, but I think Blondie was a flapper.
Or at least Dagwood was rich, and and I'm not sure if I can't remember if Blondie was rich. Dagwood was rich, but then after the crash, Dagwood married Blondie, and they went to live together without the family money.
Yeah.
And there was another one. There was another comic about rich people from the 1920s. Rich guy with a round head. Can't remember. I sometimes feel like I should know all of these comic strips, but I don't.
That's because there were so many.
There was a lot. We
know the famous
Daddy or
ones.
something like that.
Was there something called Father Knows Best?
Yes, there was.
Father Knows Best. Yes.
There was a strip named Father Knows Best.
I think that was it. Let me check. Father Knows Best.
But
no,
yeah,
I gotta say that was a TV show. That was a TV show.
It was a TV. I think it was a strip first. But like, they attempt to give him some sort of introspection here. We're sort of at the end of his life. He's kind of wondering if Nancy will live beyond him. If he's bringing up father, I think.
Bringing up father. That was it. Yeah.
That's what he's thinking of.
Yeah.
Thanks, graphic man. So, he's thinking about, is Nancy going to outlive him? Will anyone read these strips after I'm gone? I'm like, every artist thinks. That's in every artist's mind, successful or not.
Yeah.
So it's like even the attempt to give him some personality wasn't particularly unique. But like a good book. Really enjoyed it. But and I got to read a bunch of, there's like one section in here that's
these guys do tend to disappear. Remember when we were researching Bob Lubbers?
Yeah,
because we didn't know he had done Tarzan.
What did I just hear mentioning Bob Lubbers this week? Not Dr. Silver Age. The old. What's his name? I can't remember. The guy who's always in his got tons of stuff. Older guy.
Captain
Strangelove. That's it. He mentioned Bob Lubbers this week. I was like, oh, look at that, Bob Lubbers.
Yeah. Because I remember when I did the virtual panel with Mike Grell in Comic-Con Portugal during the pandemic because he couldn't come. And Mike Grell said that he had done the Tarzan strip. I had no idea. Even being caught off guard like that.
Here's an interesting section. This is from Bill Griffith. A few years ago, I was looking on eBay for Nancy books, Baby Huey comics, and Bold Ties, and he found he found a book that an old scrapbook filled with cutout Nancy strips from the 1960s. So someone had just cut out the Nancy strips, put them in the, as people did back then when you couldn't get books. If you wanted to save the Nancy strips, that's what you do. So he ended up getting that book. It's someone's scrap of pasted in Nancy, and all very neatly pasted in, no buckling, rinking, no stays. They're all from 60 to 63, mostly 61 and 62, with no comments. So he ended up, this is printing a section that is those Nancy strips. So like, this is just because the person picked out a lot of the best strips from those years and saved them in a book. So he's like, you know what? Here are some of them. So I found that interesting. That little thing. But yeah, I gotta say, good stuff. The weakest part about it was Ernie Bushmuller's life. I said, what? Besides that, I mean, he was just, like he said, he felt like he was touched by God. Getting his break at 19, his job at 14, his big break at 19. Titcom, it's interesting to think that a lot of strips are lost to time. Yeah, because they're so regional. Super popular local strips in local papers were unknown outside that province or state. Yeah, which one did I don't know, 20 years ago, what's the name of that? Judge somebody. And it was a strip that had been running for like 70 years. And I had never heard Judge Parker. I think that's it. Because it never ran on the East Coast or wherever I am. But it's actually still going.
Yeah, it shows up. You can read it in the King Features website.
Right. But I was like, how can there be a strip I've never even heard of that's been around for 70 years?
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, well, sometimes you just gotta see, like we don't have the same amount of international strips, and even now they're rerunning. They're rerunning old Peanuts over here because they might as well put in something that people have heard of instead of going back to Zits or whatever.
Yep. Well, I may as well show off my not Ernie Bushmuller and Nancy strip. This is my Guy Gilchrist Nancy strip, which I bought off of eBay. It's from 2002. I bought it off eBay probably in like 2012 or something. Marijuana reference?
Mm-hmm.
But
well, Sluggo Wizlet.
Corn, peppers, tomato, weeds, 2002 in the United Fig. I can't even remember how much this cost me. It was like somewhere between $50 and $100, not particularly expensive. And this is when Guy Gilchrist. It's funny how Nancy worked. He did the strip for a lot of years. When he first came on, everyone was like, "Oh, breath of fresh air for Nancy. It's it's good stuff. Oh, the strip is good." Da, 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 da. And then, of course, over the years, no one cared about it anymore. And then a new woman came on like last year, I think it was. Everyone's like, "Oh, new Nancy, breath of fresh air about it." And I'm like, they'll forget about her. And she's even like unknown in terms of there's no picture. She's like camera shy and publicity shy. So everybody knows her name, but nobody really knows who she is, kind of thing. We're doing Nancy now.
I blame Watterson.
I was looking for I was trying to find out if there's a dictionary of comic strips. Apparently there isn't one. There should be. And I just found. Did you know that there's a bunch of Mark Trail books, not reprinting Mark Trail strips, but they're like Mark Trail's Guide to Camping and Guide to Fishing.
There was a encyclopedia of comic strips in like the 70s.
I had something similar
that was
like
pretty common. I don't know. I don't think I ever had a copy of it, but that was the Encyclopedia of Comic Strips was the one comic strip people had. And here's my certificate of authenticity from Guy Gilchrist, in case anyone's out there making fake Guy Gilchrist comic strip.
I'll be right back. I think I have a book that's like a encyclopedia type thing.
Yeah, I know. I think Yellow Kid is one of the people on the cover, if memory serves. But
speaking of Yellow Kid, the New York World was where Hogan's Alley was published.
Oh, okay.
And the Captain and the Kids, but not the Cats and Jammer Kids. It was after it was retitled Captain and the Kids.
Tit Goblin says the Spider-Man and Phantom strip was still being run in the Newfoundland Herald until the paper shuttered last year.
Well, I still go and read the Phantom strip. I go to the King Features website and read a week's worth of strips.
Spider-Man was in reruns though when I think after Stan Lee died. They put the strip in. Not that Stan Lee had anything to do with the strip, but hiring people to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But after he died, they stopped making new ones.
But we knew that since the 90s.
Yeah.
But I go read the Phantom. Mike Manley has health problems, so he was replaced by Brett Levins.
Oh, cool.
And it took me a while to warm up to the style because he's drawing like Brett Levins. He's not drawing like the regular Phantom strip.
Huh.
But it does look nice. I mean, when Paul Ryan died, we're all kind of wondering what they were going to do, because it's not easy to find these type of artists who are good at drawing action,
right,
especially in such a limited space.
right, and making the deadline.
Yeah, but a lot of these superhero veterans, they're doing comic strips.
Yeah,
because they're used to working on deadlines. They have an easy to read style, and those guys don't care if, and the newspapers don't care if they're 2-year-olds that they can exploit.
Yeah. The comic strip isn't going to get hot no matter who's on it.
Right.
And what's funny too is Bushmuller was quite specific about how to draw Nancy too. Like, I think they said she had like 167 points on her hair. That was, you always had to get that right. And I was like, that sounds a little crazy.
Yeah.
Evening 62 Lefty Blues.
What's that? What is your favorite comic strip?
We're talking Nancy, and Ernie Bushmuller, with the graphic novel by Bill Griffith about Ernie Bushmuller's life. Matt Groening, as the widest-ranging cartoon chronicle of American absurdity in our time, Bill Griffith has topped himself. This is an instant comic strip classic. Yeah, like I said, he did a terrific job making a guy whose life wasn't particularly interesting, and made an interesting graphic novel about it. Did you find your book?
Yeah, so I have bought books over the years, especially like from Barnes and Nobles and stuff like that. Wants to know if I want to take dictations. I think I must have hit the key. So, looking at this price tag, this looks like this is a Barnes and Nobles book. So I would pick up these tomes, and then this one's called Comics: The Complete Collection. So it's one of those books where it's like it gives you the history of some of the strips, and it's designed to like kind of tell you the history of comic strips. And then, if I remember correctly, it focuses on particular artists. And then it has a couple of their strips afterwards.
Frederick B. Opper.
Then it gives you a little description about him, and then the next few pages are the comic strips they would work on. So this would have basically featuring these illustrators back. So I'm pretty sure it looks like the original price was $19.99 at some point, or that was the sale price.
Yeah, that was a sale price.
And it's Borders. It was even older than Barnes and Noble.
Yeah.
And so I would pick up books like that. Here's another one called Masters of the American Comics.
62 Lefty Blues has that first book too.
Oh, cool. So here's one. The cover has a Crazy Cat. Back cover is a Kirby surfer. And then this one is pretty much beautiful.
Oh. The buildings become the speed lines.
Yep. So this one is like American Comics, the Masters of American Comics. So it goes through that. It goes through a bunch of people that we've heard of. So these are the types of books that I would pick up. I would read them and then never touch them again. And I need to go back to them because they have some great images. Close up. I mean, that was not a great image, but what I mean is that they have a close up of the pencils and inks.
Terry in the Pine. Yeah.
And then this goes through like a history of it as well. So, so I would have books like that, and then occasionally I would find like there's an incredibly old celebration of
Dick
Tracy itself, and this I bought used somewhere,
Right.
so you can see how they have those markings.
That's what they do for the used ones, the cutout bin.
Yep. And this book is actually falling apart. I'm just noticing some pencil marks in it from whatever. I guess they must have. I might have bought it from a library.
Okay.
Because it has like library stamps all over.
62 Lefty Blue says, I loved Pogo as a kid, but didn't understand it. Then Peanuts, Blondie, BC were great back then. Yeah. Graphic Man has the paperback version of that Dick Tracy.
Oh, okay.
Cool. Tit Goblin says, I never had a favorite strip as a kid because my mind thought newspapers were for old people. Marvel and Image comics were cool. Strips were lame. Now I read a lot of that strip stuff.
No, I love the Phantom. And it was the 80s.
I enjoyed Spider-Man, of course. Batman's, because there was some strips of the or did Batman run when I was reading it? I might have just been reading the collected editions. Far Side was one that I always would read. Calvin and Hobbes,
of course.
Classic. Garfield, the occasional Heathcliff would pop up. And then I would get collections of stuff, like the Popeye books and stuff like that. Hagar the Horrible. Definitely read Hagar. And there was one with a king that I forget the name, but he had like a pointy chin, and they always like did the side view of him.
Wizard of Id. Yeah, I had the king and the wizard in it.
Yeah, I read that one. Beetle Bailey. I would read that one a lot.
See, I'm used to reading Beetle Bailey in comics, not in strips. And those stories were made in Brazil.
Yeah, when I was a kid in the 70s, it was still the age of newspapers. So we used to have the newspaper delivered daily. So I always read the comic strips.
My dad always
in the newspaper.
would always buy the newspaper, and when the Sunday strips came out, we would go running after those.
Oh yeah,
definitely.
That was always the most fun. Big and in color.
Big and in color.
Yep.
I only found out about Carrie Drake about 3 years ago, and Carrie Drake was like was started in the mid 40s. It was a cop strip, and that. But it was so generic, and yet it became one of the most popular strips of its time. And then it completely disappeared, and nobody even remembers who Alfred Andriolo was.
No.
I think Gray Morrow worked on it. Was it Gray Morrow? No, Carrie Drake. Who worked on Carrie Drake? Because the book I have as an Andriolo strip and another one. It's a Fran Matera strip.
So
Jerry Robinson did a ghosted for it.
Interesting.
So Nancy has 2 pages.
Okay. There she is. Some cheesecake Fritzy Ritz. And Nancy.
And you can see the little bit of information on there. And then she's referenced a few times throughout the book, but this is the only focusing on the artists themselves. I need to revisit this book.
Because it's fun. Yeah. And you dug it out.
Exactly. Now that I have it out, I'll have something to read for the weekend.
And speaking of library books, I got some used. Well, remember I was talking about the Elsa Charretier books with Matt Fraction? There's 4 of them. November, all used library books that I got off on eBay they were $30 all in. tax and shipping included. So I'm happy to have these. I haven't had a chance to read any of them yet, but annoyingly, when you buy from either Amazon or even eBay, when you buy from like a used bookstore, it's not like buying from a comic book seller in their shipping. These 4 books were just in plastic, skin tight plastic, and they must have fallen once, because this one, well, I know that one got crushed in its upper corner, and I was just like, that's just so annoying. I mean, you could at least put it in a padded envelope. It was as if they were wrapped in opaque saran wrap. That's how not packed well they were. But other than that, used bookstores they got these for pennies. They're selling them for not that much, so they just don't care. I understand. But still, I was a little disappointed that corner is crushed. That corner got crushed a little bit less, too. So it was like the 2 outside books. It fell on that corner. It fell on that corner. But I got those to read. November, volume 1 through 4. More Elsa Charretier. Who I was using her bookmarks and I checked out her YouTube. She really hasn't put much on it in a year or two. Mm-hmm. And a strange thing I got this week, also from eBay. Lock and Key the Game, this was $10 all in. Mm-hmm. It's funny, the box is completely battered, but the insides are fine. But I wanted this just because it's a card game, and I wanted to see the cards. Being a fan of cards, and I immediately built these boxes for cards. I have a template in Adobe Illustrator that I just print out and cut out, because these cards were like sliding all over this interior box here. So they're just what's the guy's name? Gabriel Rodriguez. So they're little. I have no idea how to play the game. And I probably never will. But I just kind of wanted to see the cards. It's his art put on cards, because I like cards. There's different color backgrounds with the same card. I'm pretty sure these are all panels from the comic. There's even, I'll show you the special cards, the key cards. But this is just so they don't all mix up and go all around, because here are the foil key cards. In the I don't know, have you guys read Lock and Key or seen the show?
I watched the show. I was very intrigued by the show itself.
I didn't make it all the way through season 2 of the show. The comic is a lot better, but these keys all do different things and give you superpowers. I guess they have something to do with the game. I don't know. Like I said, I was just like, cool. I want to see those cards, and $10 was an easy price to pay to see these cards. And I like how there's, amongst all these cards, there's a game over card. So I guess if you draw that one, the game's over. Yeah, I don't know what. But these ones have a different back too. So there's like these 10 or 20 cards that are, I guess they're challenges. Danger, white challenge.
So you probably open the door and then it shows you what.
Yeah, maybe.
I would imagine if it's a game, it's probably set up to look for the keys, and then maybe to look for the locks, and then open the door.
Keys give you the superpowers to be able to do things.
Or they unlock doors to take you to other places. So
The keys don't actually. It's not a key unlock door thing. It's more like the key is magic itself, and
right,
like there's one key that goes in your head.
right. So you
Like
can
you
go
put it
into
in the
your
back of someone's head, and you can open up their head and go into their subconscious.
right. Like I said, I only know the TV
Yeah.
show stuff, and there are a few times it gets used into doors or items.
Some of them, like you can put it in a door and transport yourself anywhere. But there's a rule book that goes with it that maybe I'll read someday. Of course, they had to put it in a comic book font because,
Yeah, of course.
But that's just little something extra I got this week, just kind of because it was kind of fun. And this is a cryptozoic game. And apparently all the cryptozoic games come with a little standee. So this is not actually part of the game. You can just stand it up as you're playing the game. Wilson froze. I guess he has to reboot or something. Are you a fan of trading cards, Paolo?
No. There's never been a thing here. Although we used to have sticker collections back when I was a kid.
Every kid loves stickers.
Yeah, but I didn't want to throw them up, but my mom made me.
Mom's always making you get rid of your stuff.
Yeah. Why do you need that? You don't look at it. That's not the point.
Yeah, I actually this was on my watch list for months. And it was like $15. And I was just like, yeah, I just kind of never wanted to pay $15 for it. And then like 2 weeks ago, the seller or whoever sent me a offer of $10. I was like, all right, I'll pay $10 for it. A game I'll never play, but cards I'll look at. Did you get to read anything interesting this week, Paolo?
Not read, but I did get a new comic, or at least an old comic, and I won it. I didn't have
won it.
Yes, Logic Comics.
Oh, I think I have that one.
Which is sort of a book about logic and mathematics, disguised as a biography about Bertrand Russell.
I do believe I have. I'm looking for it over on my shelf there. I don't. There it is. Logic Comics. Let me see the spine again. Is it the same volume I have? Yeah, I think it is. An epic search for truth, it says.
Yes.
Yep.
By Apostolos Doxiadis and Christos Papadimitriou.
Aha.
Now you know how to pronounce it.
I won't remember. I think I got that when it came. What year did that come out? Does it say?
Oh man, 2006, about that maybe. So this was published by a book publisher, not a comics publisher.
Right. I may have got it between 2006 and 2010. It's been on my shelf for a while.
Okay. 2009, the original version.
Okay.
And this one, and the Portuguese edition is from 2014.
Okay. Yeah, I probably got it around 2010, I would guess. But yeah, I have that one on my shelf. It was a good read. It was really different than your average comic. Because it's about history and logic and solving logical problems, using logic to solve world problems, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. And the art's pretty good.
Yeah, the artist. Let me get you big. There you go. Yeah, the art was. I remember the art and storytelling were both good.
The next page. Yeah. I mean, for mathematicians, these guys have a good sense of pace and storytelling.
Yeah, you don't get a lot of comics about mathematicians. That's probably why I got it all those years ago. Matter of fact, it's up in what is now I'll have to stick this one up there too. Slaughterhouse 5, To Kill a Mockingbird, George Orwell's 1984, my sort of literary adaptation and biography section. I'm going to put that.
Like your own classic illustrated.
Yeah, Epileptic, Persepolis. Those are both biographies / autobiographies at times. Pedro and Me. Good stuff. Yeah, you'll probably like that one. Did you make it to the comic shop this week, Wilson?
No, I did not. I put it off till today, and
didn't make it.
It turned out everything was due today.
Ah.
Production-wise, so it was like, oh, we need these, and it's, some jobs are always that hurry up and wait.
Right.
Hurry up and wait. And then it was like, well, so far this week, I was busy on Wednesday, so it wasn't happening on Wednesday. Didn't happen on Thursday. I was like, okay, maybe I could sneak out on Friday. And nope, got started the day. I was like, all right, got some stuff finished. I sent a few files over, and then all of a sudden it was like, these aren't the files that we need. We need these files, this, and that. It's like, you requested these files, it was the way it was worded.
Oh, yeah. Like it's your fault. You sent the wrong files over.
Exactly. It's like you wanted the deluxe set. The deluxe set is the first set we did, and they got all approved. But if you want them again, I'll send them again. And it was like, they'll start changing the naming convention tonight.
Yeah.
So then there was just a lot of back and forth. It was like, well, I can send you these. I can't call them final because you have not approved the final. So there was just a bunch of back and forth. It's just all part of production in general.
Right.
Where it's
part of the course.
Part of the course, and it's like you get frustrated with it. And again, it's part of the job that you sit there and wonder, should I really have taken this job? But it's like, of course, it was fine until today. And that's what it usually is. And to me, it is one of those things where it's like, we need to send these files out so they could get approved by the license holder.
Mm-hmm.
Friday, the end of the day, they're not going to look at it till Monday.
Yeah.
Because anything that's ever due on Friday will not be seen until Monday.
Right.
And I understand they need to cover themselves and go, well, we sent that file out on the Friday, so come Monday, we can't get in trouble. And I get that. But sometimes it's just like, if
you
were
had
approved that
that anyone who needs all this stuff on a Friday, if they had planned properly, they wouldn't need it all Friday afternoon.
Yeah.
They need it there because they put it off, and now it's got to be there. And you're like, oh, could have done this all on a Wednesday.
Yeah, and then I could have had Friday off to go ahead and pick up my books. I did get a book in the mail from a Kickstarter last week, but I don't know if I mentioned it. So some buddies of mine from Committed Comics, I've known and worked with them for years because the editor-in-chief I've known from my comic book days going back to my college days. So they decided to do a Kickstarter on some of their books. And one of the books is called Tales from the Asylum, issue number 1. I did the coloring for the cover. So these are more comps than anything. Yeah. So turn on the light. So it's one of those homage covers.
All right,
So the main character that's very similar to like the Crypt Keeper is somebody that's in an asylum.
Right.
And so he introduces the books. And so with this alternate cover, which is basically very similar to the McFarlane cover. And they're a small press company, so they like to hire new guys who are testing out books. So here's some interiors. And it's basically about this kid getting ready to go to Comic-Con and meet like his hero character. So he creates his own like sidekick character type thing. So it's an adventure story going to, getting ready and getting your stuff ready to go to the con. And on his way, the hero character got captured. And I don't know how the kid finds out about it, but he goes and tries to save the hero and kind of use that as an audition to become the sidekick.
Huh.
So some good looking artwork.
Yeah.
So, nice little fun. And since it's written by someone who works in the industry, I think he put in a lot of background jokes about comics and stuff like that.
Right.
Looking forward to actually staying there reading. So it was on Kickstarter, so those are the people who helped it out. That's the regular cover.
Okay.
I actually have a copy of the regular. Oh, here we go. So this is what the regular cover looks like.
Tales from the Asylum. Getting a little close to the trim line there with that logo.
Oh yeah. Well, I wasn't the one doing the production. The publisher actually does his own production stuff.
Yeah, it shows.
Yep. That's the back cover.
Still getting too close to that trim line.
Yes. So I got copies of the books. Looks like they made a postcard out of the artwork as well.
Okay.
So that was like the only haul of new stuff that I got end of last week, early this week.
It's funny. I always forget to tell you guys about the Kickstarter stuff when it comes in because it's all digital that I get usually. Like, what did I just get this week? Hold on a second. Let me check my downloads folder.
I also did get digitals for 3 books that I did for the Kickstarter that Sean Chen did for his project. I haven't even read those books. I downloaded it when they came in, and I basically forgot about them.
Yeah, I've seen Sean Chen talk about it on Naman's channel.
I got a book called Only Friends with Pen. Came in this week and Kickstarter. Like I said, I got the digital versions of it. And it's one of the not safe for work comics that I got. And I only read the first issue so far, which was pretty good. But it's about a woman who's an OnlyFans content provider and her trials and tribulations. So it was kind of interesting. But I liked that one. Oh, and let me show you the bargain I got this week at my comic shop. This is the Acme Novelty Library Date Book Volume 2. It's the Acme Novelty 1995 to 2002. So this is Chris Ware's sketchbook. So it's just got all sorts of stuff in it. There's the toy Batman. I haven't gone through it yet. But Roy, who is my LCS owner, I think he said he ordered this for someone, but it turned out they already had it or something like that. So it's funny. It was even after I was hanging out, after I already made my purchase and was hanging out. He was just looking at the shelves and he picked this up. He says, "You want this for a good price?" and it's a $40 because he knows I'm one of the only people who would be interested in something like this. So it's like a $40 book, and he says, "I'll give it to you for $15." And I was like, you know what? For $15, I'll take it. Because why not? There's a Chris Ware sketch, but he knew he wasn't going to be selling this to anybody. Because no one just walks into the store looking for the Chris Ware sketchbook. It's like, may as well give it to Jared for cost, or even a couple bucks below cost. So I got that Acme Novelty Library thing. You guys read much Chris Ware?
Oh God,
I know we've talked about him before.
Yeah, I can't.
The
You
name is
can't.
familiar, but I don't think I've ever actually sat and read any of his books.
Yeah, listen, drink a lot of beer first.
Here's Chris Ware. His books are beautiful. Jimmy Corrigan, The Smartest Boy in the World, the Acme Novelty Library, absolutely beautiful. And I've got that oversized book by him too, which is all about his designs. And he's one of those guys who I really should like because he's kind of right up my alley. Except I never really liked his writing that much. Because if you were to see his work, you'd be blown away how beautiful it is. Really, really nice looking. He's a great designer, a great cartoonist. When I finally liked I think because I tried to get, I think, is it the Jimmy Corrigan Smartest Boy on Earth book? I think I have, and I tried to get through it. Everybody says it's too depressing, which there's a lot of truth.
I gave up after 4 pages.
I can say I am aware of his art style.
Yeah.
This book actually ends on Chris Ware.
Okay.
And I've seen his stuff before, but I don't think I ever sat down and read it. I might have picked up the Acme book. As a question and answer with him, but yeah. So I recognize the artwork.
Right, his art style is beautiful. You
Yes.
He makes you bigger, so you should show that off a little. Yeah, very graphic designy, very precise, very well composed. And I finally liked his stuff. I think it was The Smartest Boy on Earth I was reading. When I read it like it was a Sunday comic, I'd read a page or two a day. Yeah, that's nice.
I do like this robot.
Yeah, it's cool looking.
Yeah.
He makes a lot of cool looking. He also does design. He also designs books too, like for other people. Tit Goblin says, I bought some of his books for $1 at a book fair. It's so perfect, it's boring for me. I try but fail to read it too. I thought it was just me. No, I tried and failed to read it for years. Like I said, until I finally read it like it was a Sunday strip. I'd read a page or two a day. And then I actually enjoyed it. But I always found his writing a little too boring. But when I read like a strip or two a day, I could get into it more. I wasn't, because it doesn't read like a 3-arc story. That's not what it is. 3 scenes. 3 scene, not scene. What are those?
3-act.
3-act story. I couldn't remember the word act. A 3-act story. So that's why I ended up liking it a lot more. I started reading, what was that one? First Kingdom by Jack Katz. Another one I've never been able to get through.
Yeah. No, seriously, just page 1. That's a doozy.
But I started getting through it. I stopped though. I read the first couple of issues by reading like a page a day, and I'd read it digitally, and I just zoom in on one panel so I could see. And I had fun reading it like that, just a couple pages a day, then put it down. A couple pages, then put it down, because like I said, that one's another tough read. There's a lot of stuff in there, especially at the beginning. Tit Goblin says, he's in my category. I respect him for his craft, but I don't like his work. I like his work. It's his writing that doesn't thrill me. Like I said, I learned to like his writing more by reading it a different way. And I'll buy his sketchbook for $15. Not $40. No, thank you. No, thank you. What's the most you'll play for an artist's sketchbook who you just kind of like?
If I just kind of like them, I don't think I would.
$15 sounds about right.
Yeah.
Nice hardcover sketchbook. I would pay about $15 for just about anyone's sketchbook. If it's, comes like this. And a nice hardcover package with all those. I mean, I've seen those sketchbooks they sell at cons that are basically mini comics for $15, and I might not pay $15 for one of those. Happy French Girl. Snide Woman Reading. Corner of Rue Le Trois Barn and Rue de Pierre Leve. Guess he was in France. That's right. Was he the one who won some award in Night of France or something like that? Was that
Chris Ware?
Chris Ware, or was that Dan Clowes?
I think both them and Charles Burns won something at Angoulême.
Okay. And this week, I got 10 comics this week. There was a lot of comics. Got the last issue for now of Love Everlasting. Once again, Elsa Charretier, who, by the way, now has a big sale going on in her art on her website, if you want some website. But it says, to be continued in a little while. But we'll have to see if they... Sometimes cartoonists say that, and it never is continued.
Did it end on a cliffhanger?
Kind of. I mean, it didn't really... Not quite a cliffhanger, but the story continues. And she was selling a lot of these first page splash pages. A lot of them have sold already, too, because the beginning of each new chapter has a splash page, which, according to her latest newsletter, she was kind of intimidated to do. But she looked at a lot of Alex Toth splash pages and went from there. Let's see. Oh, and here you can get it in... these are the trade paperbacks. Volume 3 coming soon. Like I said, I've really liked this series. Her artwork has really sold it for me. But this one, it doesn't quite wrap up the story. We find out, though we kind of knew, that it's her mother who's behind this, trying to find her happiness. And since this story arc was the story of the cowboy who fell in love with her in one of the comics and then was tasked with having to, because what happens is every time she found herself in a new love comic situation and she didn't fall in love, the cowboy had to kill her so she can move on to the next story. He kind of got tired of doing that and kind of, in this issue, kind of kidnaps her and has a last stand protecting her from the mother. But he can't. And this particular issue ends with her mother talking to her, saying, yeah, I'm trying to find you happiness. And then her mother shoots her so she can move on to the next story. So that's where it ends, with her trying to move on to the next story. Mm-hmm. But good book. It'll never reach Portugal.
No.
I assume Chris Ware does, though.
We don't have Chris Ware in Portuguese. You
buy the French ones?
No, the American ones.
Oh, the American ones. I figured since he's winning awards in France, there must be a French version.
There are, but we were talking about it in the comic fans dinner party on Tuesday.
Yeah.
I went there.
Okay.
And there's if you were born after the mid-70s, you are less likely to know any French. And if you were born during the 1980s, you don't speak any French at all.
Okay.
But if you were born before 1970, you're more likely to know French than English.
Back when it was the lingua franca of the world.
That's right. Right, because I still had French cartoons on TV, and they were French with Portuguese subtitles. So I still but by 1990 there were none.
Okay.
No European cartoons at all. Not even English. Not even British.
Huh.
We did have the Teletubbies, which were an exception. Like, new kids don't know what Danger Mouse is.
The Teletubbies didn't. There was no language in that. There was just their babbling, right?
Yeah, they said stuff like "hello" and
okay.
food, son.
I never watched the Teletubbies much, if you can imagine that.
Yeah.
They're a little after my time.
No, we got Sesame Street when I was about 10 or 11. I watched Sesame Street not because I was learning to count, but the characters were fun.
Just wanted to watch that 10 Boston cream pie guy fall down the stairs. That endlessly amused me.
Yeah, and the cow was proud to be a cow. Yes, I did have Count Duckula. We had Count Duckula in the 80s, but new kids don't know what Count Duckula is. The guy who did the voice of Danger Mouse also did the voice of Count Duckula, and he was Frog in The Wind in the Willows, which it was a stop. The Wind in the Willows is a famous children's book in the UK. And it had multiple installments. Usually, you can find all the stories put together in a volume, but the original the stories were published individually. And the guy who did Count Duckula and Danger Mouse, he played Frog, who was sort of the instigator of the story, because there was the point of view characters are Mouse and Mole. Frog is their friend, and he's rich and crazy. And then there's Badger, who is old and wise, and they get into adventures. But they're animals. The mouse is a mouse, and Frog is a frog.
I didn't have Count Duckula, Tit Goblin. Where's he from? I know the name, but
it's a spin-off of Danger Mouse.
Okay.
Count Duckula appeared as an adversary on Danger Mouse, and then he got his own cartoon, and they're making fun of all of the vampire tropes, because we got in that typical British fashion of making fun of stuff. Well, the vampire king can only be resurrected when the moon is in the 4th house of Aquarius. But the last resurrection did not pan out, because the butler, instead of using blood, he used ketchup. So Count Duckula is a vegetarian. A vegetarian vampire duck.
Count Duck. I got a facsimile edition this week. And the reason I got it was only $4. Not an Mad Magazine #1. I always liked this cover. And
cover.
What was that?
That's a good cover.
Yeah.
That's definitely an iconic cover.
That thing, that slithering blob coming towards us. What is it? It's Melvin.
Yes, it is. What do you think
Harvey
it was?
Kurtzman cover. But I can remember I had a reprint of this, I guess you'd call it. Did you, when in the 70s, Mad Magazine would sometimes reprint this or other issues, like stuck in their that month's Mad Magazine. And I remember I thought you could take it out, because it was literally like a picture of Mad Magazine size with this stuck in it. I can remember trying to tear it out, but it just tore, because it was actually glued into the spine. Because, sometimes they'll put like a comic book or a magazine inside another magazine and it comes right out.
Right.
That one didn't. I remember being very disappointed in that because I didn't want it in the middle of a Mad magazine. What good was that? I wanted a comic book. So now I finally got it as a comic book. What stories are in this? Hoo-ha? Blobs? Ganefs? And Varmint by Jay Severin. But this was the magazine that changed humor in the world.
Doesn't look it, but it did.
It did, yeah.
Yeah.
Everything we take for granted about humor started here. It influenced everything. Because it's hard to believe there was never a publication that just made fun of everything. And this, especially, we live in the day and age, and we've lived there for a long time, where everything gets made fun of all the time. Not back then. They are British.
And it's funny because sometimes I would read the Mad Magazine version of a movie before I even saw the movie.
Yeah.
That's happened many times.
Oh, yeah. It's like, what is I just read some little article commenting on the Simpsons TV show. And they were talking about, people today don't understand how counterculture the Simpsons TV show was when it first came out. Because, people didn't act like that on television. And over the past 30-something years, the counterculture has become the culture. Mm-hmm. It's like Simpsons is now part of the culture, but back then it was counterculture. Mad Magazine, same thing. It was counterculture when it first came out. There was nothing like it.
That's fun. Natural. If people respond to it, it will inevitably become popular, and then you can't call it counterculture anymore.
That's just, that's what it is. Simpsons is the culture. Mad Magazine is the culture.
What I find wild about it, especially with the Simpsons, because I've watched, basically documentaries and things like that talked about how the Simpsons, as you mentioned before, is counterculture, that they would make fun of stuff to the point where even the government got involved in the sense of President Bush had made a comment about it, and that the writers had to create a cartoon going against the president because the president famously said, we want American people to be more like the Waltons than the Simpsons.
Yeah.
And that was a big deal. And the wildest thing about watching this documentary is that I've watched many documentaries about the 60s and the 50s and stuff like that, before my time, right, not living through that. And then to see documentaries about the 80s and 90s and go, I remember when that happened. I remember, that it was a big deal, and wondering, mm-hmm, and being young at that time, and this is before message boards and this is before internet, going to school and talking is like, do you think they're going to shut down the Simpsons? And it was a wild kind of thing to have a conversation about for something like that.
Everybody was decrying Bart Simpson being such a bad role model, and that Don't Have a Cow Man T-shirt with him with the slingshot. That was everywhere in the very early 90s.
And saying about how they got to take those out of schools.
Yeah.
And amazing. And then the flip side of that too, because I lived through a little bit of watching what was going on with Beavis and Butthead, and being at Marvel, Marvel was publishing those books, how it was interesting to watch companies like Kmart make a big deal, a big news report is like Beavis and Butthead T-shirts shouldn't be sold.
Oh yeah.
So Kmart is saying that we're going to take these out. We're not going to have them in our stores. You know, you feel safe, come back and shopping at Kmart. Only to find out while working through Marvel's like, yeah, they discontinued those shirts because they weren't selling well. But the cards were selling well, and the cards were still on the Kmart shelves. And it's like, oh, so you just use this. We're going to get rid of these because the public doesn't want them. It was just a PR stunt.
Yep. Tit Goblin. He made my generation eat everyone's shorts. Yeah, it's amazing. Like I said, the people don't know what the Simpsons was going to cause juvenile delinquency, kind of thing back in the early days. It was nutty, and now they predict things. Now everybody makes Simpsons memes of them predicting stuff.
Right. It's like when you run a show that long, how many things does Star Trek predict? The data pads are now our iPads and all this other stuff. It's like you run the show long enough, you're going to find something.
I just got an email from Humanoids. Special sneak peek. Was it Arcady and the Lost Titan? I don't know how I got on the Humanoids mailing list, but I guess I'm on there.
Order something from them at some point?
I don't remember.
Arcady from Humanoids. That sounds familiar somehow.
35th anniversary of the original French release of Book 1 by the legendary French artist Caza. C-A-Z-A.
Oh, yeah.
Uppercase.
Yeah. Yes, I know what it is.
Okay, I don't.
It's crazy, weird science fiction.
Maybe I'll have to check it out. Speaking of crazy, weird science fiction, one book I got this week that I loved. Precious Metal. Let me show you this. Written by Darcy Van Polgeest, and the artist is Ian Bertram with Matt Hollingsworth on colors. Hassan Otsmane Elhau is the letterer. But this is a continuation of a series I bought from the world called Little Bird. And the art on this thing is fantastic. Where is so imaginative. And I'd call it, sci-fi fantasy kind of art. This one's extra big, this beginning. Let me see if I can get an especially imaginative. Oh, there's a nice him going underwater imaginative piece. Mm-hmm. But there's another one. Oh, here's this eyeball guy.
Kind of reminds me of the artwork from the book I used to letter called Nightmare Brigade.
Yeah, it's very kind of Mobius-like within its little lines.
There's a European quality to it.
Yeah, there's a European quality to it.
Not everyone's pretty. It's just that there's a...
Right.
I hate to use the word ugliness to it, but there's kind of an ugliness to them.
They're imaginative. There's some...
Let me show you the
last page. Hold on. This pink and purple page. Really nice stuff. And matter of fact, Sleepy Reader, hello comics maniacs, I mean intellectuals. Did you see this one, Sleepy? It's a Little Bird from the world. I don't know if it's a sequel or prequel, but it's from the Little Bird people. I think he was buying that one. Yeah, the color is amazing as the line art it seems. Yeah, it is. And I got it and started reading P Metal before this stream. I have to reread it a few times. I liken him to a young Mobius, only more doodles. And there's a bit of Mobius in it. And the plot, I realized after I read it, reminds me of Akira. because I did pick it up, but I'm falling behind on my reading. This one I really enjoyed this first issue, but I enjoyed Little Bird. So, but the plot is this guy right here, who's if you see this pink stuff here, he's a human who's been modded, and those are like little appendages he has attached to his chest. And what's weird is, I think Little Bird took place in Canada. And it was all about, took place in Canada, and the US was a big influence, but it may as well be an alien planet, because it's like the US was, of course, a huge political influence on Canada, and there was like something akin to the Catholic Church, except not really. It was kind of its own alien church, even though they mentioned Jesus. There was weird stuff going on. And this could easily be set not in the US and Canada, but on some foreign world. That's how different it is than our world, which is set in the future, I guess. But and the reason I like all the alien people are all different. Yeah. And they're not even aliens as far as I know. But the reason he's going to have to read it a few times is because...
But those the Raelians.
What was that?
Their leader's called Rael.
Okay.
He's a Canadian who's a cult leader, and he uses the Church About Aliens as a scam to raise cars. I'm serious.
There's so many different factions here. Yeah. But let me show you the splash page too, just for the heck of it. Take a look at that splash page. Wake up. Because anyway, in this world now, it's illegal to mod humans. So modded humans are kind of looked down on. And there's this one, and our main character, whose name I don't know, that guy right there. Imagine he's Akira. And Akira there, much like Akira in the Akira comic book, has some sort of mental powers. And so people are kind of after him. And they even mentioned he's not the first kid with mental powers. Why are you after him? But that kid with mental powers put our lead character into this trance dreamlike stuff to tell, and showed him stuff that was happening, and showed him that the kid was in danger. So he has to go, and he wants that guy to go save him. So the rest of the issue was kind of that guy trying to save the kid, but there were kind of different layers of reality happening at different times where, was the kid telling him what to do in this trance? Was he giving him hints about the... So, and this guy is just kind of your average loser. He's not anything kind of special. But a really good story, really involving, really engrossing. And like, he keeps running into these different factions who want the kids. Some just want to mess with them. And so it takes a little concentration to figure out the exact timeline of things going on, but really well done. I have to say, this one was terrific. Let's just say. I wonder if Little Bird did well in Europe. Yeah, good. Don't know, because it looks a bit European. Yeah. Some of the church stuff in Quebec is alien. It's far out, man. It reminds me of Mobius, but also some of the crazier underground art. Yeah, it's got like Robert Crumb, Mobius, all sorts of, but very, very imaginative. I very much like just the imagination of the book in the writing and the art. You know, and as I always say, the art is the writing also. So, but very, very imaginative. Was Little Bird released over in Europe? Do you have any idea, Paulo?
What's the name in French?
In French?
I need to know.
Oh, what's what? The writer and artist?
Yeah.
It's Ian Bertram, That sounds English.
Yeah, that sounds English. No.
And Darcy van Poelgeest.
Bertram Ian. All right, so yeah, Little Bird was published in 2019.
2019, that was 5 years ago.
Then
it was a while. Created and authored by Ian Bertram and Darcy van Poelgeest.
Ian Bertram's American.
Okay.
Darcy van Poelgeest is Canadian, from Vancouver.
And I think he's a dude.
Yes. Yeah. Apparently, this stuff was licensed to Boom Studios and Glénat at the same time. Oh. It is called Little Bird in French.
So it was published in France?
Yes.
It's a good one. So I'm going to go back and reread Little Bird. Yeah, I said Poelgeest is, Canadian. Petite Oiseau?
It would be Petit Oiseau, but it's called Little Bird in France.
Oh, it's called the English Little Bird?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. There's a few more things by Ian Bertram here. So there's a... What's this? With Peter J. Tomasi. House of Penance. Came out as Dans l'Antre de la Pénitence. Okay, in Bowery Boys. Yeah, this also came out in the US first.
What one is that?
Yeah, the apparently Glénat likes Ian Bertram's art a lot, but so they make sure they license whatever he put. Okay. It gets published with his name on it.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen his work besides that. Little Bird. Tit Goblin says, I call his art style organic bubble. Everything looks inflated and organic somehow. Like your candy book where everything looks like candy. Yeah. What was the name of that one again? The Racing Robots. Bertram did a book on the Winchester House. Okay, I remember that book. Maybe I got the first issue. I don't remember if I may have. I think I got that. I don't know. I think he may have done a prophecy book for Image. The one with Tomasi.
Yeah, it's House of Penance. House
of Penance. That's the. Did I get that? Because there may have been two books on the House of Winchester.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Let me check my database. Just House of Java, House of Mystery, House of Secrets, House of Slaughter. No House of Penance. Well, I must have missed that one. There with Tomasi. Peter J. Tomasi, is that his name?
Yep.
I don't remember what I've read of his, but I've read some stuff.
I have some Green Lantern Corps that he wrote.
Didn't he write some of the cross-gen stuff?
I don't remember him writing cross-gen.
Or he might have worked for cross-gen. He might have been an in-office person. Not necessarily.
Reader says there were two comics on the Winchester House. Yeah.
That's a lot.
A lot of books on the Winchester House. And I got the second issue of Bear, Pirate, Viking, Queen, 2 out of 3. This one was fun. Like I said, I like the fact that this is only 3 issues. It's kind of, artsy and poetic. We get our sort of origin of the Viking in this one. And if this were like an ongoing, I don't know if I could hang with it.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm okay with like miniseries not making as much sense as they could. The art is really nice. But as you can see, it's kind of amorphous. And the story is like that too. It's sort of vague and amorphous, and things happen to these people. Once again, it's not really an Act 1, Act 2, Act 3 sort of story. It's a we're trying to make you feel something kind of story. Let me see. This was the monsters and bears and like it's very hard to describe, but I'm enjoying it. And who is it by? It's by written by Sean Lewis, art and letters by Jonathan Marks Baraviccia, BARRAVECCHIA. There are their names.
Baravecchia.
Baravecchia. And fun book. Just kind of crazy. Who dares take the home of Heimdall, the god? People shouting stuff. We leap into a world we will make ours again, and so we emerge and walk the quiet streets of London. That's the bear and the Viking. It's very hard to describe. You got to like artsy comics to like this one. It's also bigger than normal and $5. Bum, bum, bum. What are your favorite artsy comics, Paolo? You like any of them?
I think Kevin O'Neill is artsy.
Yeah, I think so. I think it, like League of Extraordinary Gentlemen is that's kind of like he did League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, right? Kevin O'Neill? Yeah.
Yep.
That's and was it Fear and Loathing?
Martial law.
I think that's probably as artsy as like sort of mainstream-ish comics get. How about you, Wilson? What's your favorite artsy comic?
I don't know if I have an artsy. I mean, I like Jeff Darrow stuff.
Okay.
You know, artsy wise, because he reminds me. He has this. He puts so much detail on something that could be mundane.
Right.
And it's like it's amazing. Now, I don't know if he's just hiding it. He's hiding artwork within artwork. So is he just filling stuff up, or is there something there? Like I just like looking at his artwork because you can look at a piece of something, and it's amazing. Although, as much as I like his stuff, I don't get enough of his stuff.
Well, there isn't a lot of it, but
there isn't a lot. So it's like I really could go out and just get everything he's done. But I also like it when they print the books big size. Like that's why I like Big Guy and the Rusty Rope. That I like because of just how big those pages were. Other than that, I don't think I have anything else that I could consider artsy, because sometimes I'll pick up something that looks really great, but I don't stick to it. Like there was an Image book called, I think, Godwin or something like that, where the artist was doing a very Kirby look to it.
Oh, Godland.
Yeah. And it was like, that was I remember picking up an issue just because of how colorful it was, that type of thing, but I didn't stick with it.
Yeah, that
was pretty. That was great to look at, but I couldn't tell you a story. So maybe
that one was a little weird. Godland. And who was the artist again? Oh God, I can't remember his name, but he does stuff still.
The guy, Hulk Grand Design. The guy who showed up showed up occasionally with the kayfabe guys. Tom Scioli.
Yeah, Tom Scioli, right?
Okay, yes.
I read all of Godland, and I liked all of Godland, but it always amazed me, as much as Tom Scioli was copying Kirby, how much he didn't get Kirby in terms of To me, he was kind of only seeing and copying the surface of Kirby.
Right.
Because Kirby had all that stylization for a reason.
Yeah. You'll notice around 25 that he starts channeling Ditko.
Yeah.
And I think that it was not a conscious decision.
Mm-hmm.
It just came out naturally.
Huh. But it amazed me. Sometimes I'd have to stop and be like, oh my God, he completely doesn't get Kirby in this panel. He's doing something, he's copying kind of Kirby's outer style, but completely missing the point of what the drawing meant, kind of thing. Like I said, I liked it. And it was generally good, besides moments like that where I'm going, I don't think he really gets Kirby. Which was kind of funny, since he dedicated that whole book to kind of copying Kirby's style. It was just a little weird that I don't think he got him.
Yeah. Well, you can say the same about other Kirby pastiche guys. Mike Allred, particularly. Allred uses a lot of design elements from Kirby, but his storytelling is not the same.
No, he's not. But I don't think he. It wasn't like Godland where that was supposed to be Kirby-esque. There was a different. Being influenced by Kirby is one thing.
Yeah, I think Joe
like
Casey. Joe Casey as a writer was doing better with the concepts being Kirby-esque than Shelley with the art.
Well, but I think the art was good. Don't let me.
Yeah. No, definitely, yeah.
Like, I don't want to leave the impression that the art was bad. It was not. It was good art.
No, but I understand what you mean. It is Kirby, surface level Kirby. It's not Kirby storytelling.
No,
it's not Kirby characters.
Right. So it was a little strange at times.
Yeah.
And Titgoblin, would you consider Bill Sienkiewicz books artsy? Stray Toasters is definitely his most artsy. I would call Bill Sienkiewicz generally mainstream artsy because he's a mainstream guy. But Stray Toasters was that's 100% artsy.
Moby Dick in the first comics Classics Illustrated line.
Yeah,
that's artsy.
Ted McKeever is my top. Yeah, Ted McKeever is artsy.
Yeah.
Jim Mahfood is, I guess he can be artsy, but he's more cartoon artsy.
Right. You know, Paul Chadwick.
Yeah. I think Paul can fit into
Chadwick.
That.
Yeah.
Concrete.
I would say his artsiness is more in his writing than his drawing.
Suppose. I mean, I first found Paul Chadwick.
He might be more literary than artsy.
Because I first saw Paul Chadwick way before I had heard of Concrete, when he had a short run on Dazzler.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's right. He did.
And that thing does not look like a superhero comic.
No.
He does try to go through the motions, but he can't avoid being Paul Chadwick.
Right.
And of course, that was not written by him.
Right.
But it is artsy. It's like somebody trying to paint a superhero fight, not knowing what happens in superhero fights. Also, he got Wolverine's costume really weird.
Yeah, I don't know if I noticed him in those Dazzlers because I picked up Concrete #1. I mean, Dark Horse Comics #1 with Concrete in it when it first came out. So that's where I think I first noticed Paul Chadwick. And I may have gone back and looked at those Dazzlers because I wasn't buying Dazzler in issue 37. Or whenever it was. I know I'd long since had any interest in Dazzler. Long since lost any interest in Dazzler, I should say. But yeah. Here's a first issue I got that came out a few months ago. I picked up Uncanny Valley, issue #1.
Okay.
And I picked it up because I've heard good things about it on YouTube. And also, Tony Fleece is the writer on it, who I've enjoyed his Local Man, who I think he's the artist on, and I've enjoyed his Stray Dogs and now Feral, which he's the writer on. So I'm like, why don't I try Uncanny Valley? So I checked to see if my comic shop had any, and issue 2 was already out, so they reordered me in issue 2. And issue 3 is coming out, I think, next week. So they reordered me a 3. But this is pretty neat. Let me show you. Who's the artist? Dave Watcher. And I was told, the beginning is just the story about this kid not fitting in school and his mother worried about him. And by the end, we come to find out that, the crows are after him. This is a world where cartoon characters are real. And it turns out he's part cartoon character. So that's why he's been getting in trouble at the new school. Like they show he and his friends decide to jump off a bridge. You don't even know the reason. But he sinks right in like a cartoon character. Whomp. But then his other 2 friends hurt their legs because they're just human beings. So at the end, it turns into some chase scene where these crows are after him and his mother. And this guy shows up who it turns out is his grandfather. So I'm looking forward to reading some more Uncanny Valley. The first issue was pretty good. Another Boom Studios one. It's a Boom Studios $5 comic. That's why I probably didn't pick it up. I see that $5 price tag. I'm like, eh. The guy who did Decorum for Image is great artsy stuff. I don't know that book. Hey, uncanny people. Hello there, Mind the Comics. How are you this evening?
He's not going to the Comics Festival in Belgium. But then again, neither am I. There's probably some interesting stuff there.
I think I'm going to finally go to New York Comic Con this year in October for the first time, maybe since 2017. I filled out the professional form. So they'll give me the discounted ticket, which is still like $100 or something.
Oy.
For the weekend. But I think I'll actually go.
Uh-huh. Will somebody be throwing petals of roses at your feet as you walk?
I would hope so, but probably not. I'll probably have to walk on the stupid ground like everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know how terrific I am.
Yeah, and they'll even insist that you wear shoes.
They don't know I can make balloons fall or rise and confetti fall.
And lightning.
And lightning. Thunder and lightning couldn't be lasers. I forgot. Lightning is double thumbs up. No, that's fireworks. Lightning is double thumbs down is lightning. There we go. Rain and lightning. Smog.
You can make smog by driving a Ford Excursion through downtown during rush hour.
Let's do a Reed, Rip, and Slab. What decade do you want? I got 3 1991s. We may as well do a 1991.
Yeah, all right. Just before Image.
Let's see. We are gonna do. Let's do 1991 March. Here is a interesting threesome of comics. We have Lieutenant Blueberry #2 by good old Mobius. We've got Hate #4 by Peter Bragg.
No. It's not Mobius.
Jean Giraud.
It's Jean Giraud.
Jean Giraud. We've got Amazing Spider-Man 347 by Larson and Emberlin. So we've got something for every. We got the European comic for Paolo, the indie comic for me, and the Spider-Man for Wilson.
That's the only book that I bought. I was aware of Lieutenant Blueberry.
That's the only book I didn't buy.
I
I had
just
the other
didn't.
two.
I don't think I know I own a book here or two, but I know I don't have that one.
The thing about Blueberry, the books are published in cycles. So you have 3 or 4 books which are set in the same type period that are done one after the other. You don't necessarily have to read all of them, but they are in that time period. So the character acts the same way throughout that group of books. Now the cycles are are not published in chronological order. So you have Blueberry. You can have Lieutenant Blueberry's before Blueberry because it's still in the army. But there are a few which are the youth of Blueberry, and those are actually much more recent. And then there's Mr. Blueberry, which are when Blueberry's older and he's a gambler in Louisiana. But you kind of skip. It's like reading Conan. You skip through time as you read Conan stories.
And that issue of Hate is a classic. That's the early issues of Hate, back when it was cool, as Peter Bagg says. Back when it was the official comic book of the grunge generation. And have either of you guys read all of Hate?
I don't think I ever read any of Hate.
It is really, really good.
Is it?
It is, like I said, to me, the 3 volumes of Hate are the great American novel. They really are. And volume 1 is everybody's favorite because that's when he's young and crazy and living in Seattle. And matter of fact, the book is called, what is it? Buddy Does Seattle. If you ever want to pick up just the volume, let's see. Buddy Does Seattle, Buddy Does New Jersey, and Buddy Buys a Dump are the 3 volumes. The volume 3 is really thin. But it really is. I mean, he ages nearly in real time over. So, and if you want to read the first volume, The Bradleys is the story of him in high school. That's his whole family. But this stuff right here is what put Peter Bagg on the map. And it's just one of the most beloved sort of youth comics ever. Because he's, 20 years old and moves to Seattle and is a 20-year-old crazy person in Seattle. So that's how it became sort of the official comic of grunge, of the grunge generation. And he's living a grungy lifestyle. But if you pick up Hate Volume 1, Buddy Does Seattle, I guarantee you'll like it.
So I'm going to read
Or my money back?
Or your money back. Or I'll buy it from you. I can always use another copy.
Yeah, I'm going to read Blueberry, slab Hate, and rip Spider-Man.
Oh, alas, poor Yorick. I ripped Spider-Man.
Spider-Man the first, Eric Larson, Long Tongue?
Oh, okay. Look at that.
Might be. I'm not positive.
Which he didn't know he did.
Yeah.
He thought he was copying Todd McFarlane.
But no
Todd McFarlane never drew him with a long tongue.
No.
Who said you weren't copying
one
me?
pen, it was apparently a back of a trade paperback or something, where the tongue looked just a little long, and then Eric was just like, "Okay, must be long."
Nah.
He went insane for it, but apparently I don't know if that's the issue, but I do own it, and since I do own it, if it is the first issue, then it should be slabbed. But would probably slab Blueberry, so I can read Hate because I never read it, and that unfortunately means that I would have to rip the Spider-Man book diagonally so I could split Spider-Man's head from Venom. And I would probably, I'm thinking dolphin the head. So he's holding the dolphin instead of the head.
There you go. Because we're not allowed to have skulls on covers.
Right.
Oh, I should show you I'm going to show you a cover from a French comic. After we're done here, just so.
And,
Okay, but I'm going to Dolphin Venom Stung.
there you go. And I'll put the flamingos on the gun for Blueberry on the Blueberry.
That's just what I was thinking too.
Yeah, sounds
Standing
good.
on
Yeah,
the gun. Yep.
yeah,
Waiting
sounds
for it to
good.
go off.
Let's see, what's Tit Goblin gonna do? He's gonna read hate, slab Blueberry, rip Spider-Man, Dolphin the gun. What were you doing, Paolo?
Read Blueberry, slab hate, rip Spider-Man.
Okay, what am I gonna do? I want to read hate again. So I'm going to read hate. And I'm going to slab Spider-Man. And I'm going to have to rip up Blueberry, which I have. But I wasn't a huge fan of those blueberries.
You're going to have a hard time ripping that cover.
Yeah. It's a graphic. I'm going to rip it at the spine, like rip it in half. Now, that's a graphic novel. Not easy to get through. And let's see. I'm going to Dolphin Venom. So it's going to be a venomized dolphin. Fit in with the other venomized covers.
So you're actually going to Dolphin Eddie Brock.
Yes. And I'm going to put the flamingos are going to be on. Oh, I can't remember his name. That's the lead character's little brother in the hate cover. He's going to be, the flamingos are going to be standing on his brow, right in front of the logo. Butch, that's his name, I think. Those are three pretty good covers, I have to say, too. Very all in different ways. They venom a horse in the new trailer. I did not see that trailer. But yeah, there's a new Venom movie coming out with. Who is that who voices Venom?
That's
I can see his face. And the only name I can think of is Paul Harvey, and that's not him. He's an old-time radio guy. Hardy? Somebody Hardy? Tom Hardy?
Tom Hardy.
Tom Hardy. I don't know how I pulled that name out of my brain.
I think that's the name.
Tom Hardy. Something like that. Alas, poor Spider-Man. Our visit to 1991. I like the sort of spread of covers on that one. Just sort of the complete differences. And here's a comic I got this week, which I didn't even realize was a piggyback cover until I think it was 62 Lefty Blues mentioned it. Everybody else should recognize it right away.
Yeah.
Star Wars.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know how I missed it, but I missed it. And it's by Jerry Duggan, I think is the writer. Where are the credits? Story and art, Jerry Duggan and Gary Brown. Color artist, Chris Halloran. Letterer, Joe Sabino. Production artist, Rich Folks. And very sort of lone wolf and cub-ish art. I'm not going to say, as a first issue, it didn't grab me. Because it was the story of it was first we got the story of this Western outlaw guy who's on the run and killing people, and then he gets shot and dies. Then we get the story of this woman who is a female samurai, which is unheard of, so everybody hates her. And her side loses the war, so she just starts killing people. there's a lot more of her story in here with a lot more samurai violence until I think at the end she eventually dies. And I guess they're both like crossing the river Styx until they end up in this realm of monsters. And that's it. And run into this other guy who looks like he's from the Middle East, I guess, or India. Is that an Indian headdress?
I wonder if he's supposed to be Captain Nemo.
Yeah, Captain Nemo was Indian, right?
Yeah.
So it might be a Sikh or an Indian, because Captain Nemo was a Sikh, right?
Yeah, that's a bit exaggerated dress for a Sikh, but
Yeah.
I'll take it.
But it really didn't get the story going for me. I mean, all these pages to get us to, I guess the action's going to start next issue. I don't know. But I don't even know if I'm going to get a second issue or not. We'll have to see. But the first issue really wasn't terrible. It just really didn't grab me. See, what's Friar Tuck saying here? All right, good stuff, guys. We're going over to Group Therapy Podcast channel for Sci-Fi Friday at 8 p.m. Be good, fellas, and have a wonderful weekend. You too.
Have a good one.
You too. What's Paulo sharing with us?
Okay, so since you said you can't have skulls in comic covers, this
amazing.
They took away. They made Ghost Rider's head Johnny Blaze's head.
Yeah.
They also took away the flames on the bike too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it can't have anything.
He's riding an orange bike.
Right.
They shrunk Swarm.
Mm-hmm.
Because the B-Man is too scary.
Well, that's the reason why they did it.
Uh-huh.
There's a previous issue of Titan where also with the champions on the cover, and all the members or the team is there except for Ghost Rider. No skulls on the cover.
No skulls on the cover. I was right. Making a joke.
And in the interior, they just left it normal?
Yes, the interior is all right. I think it is. I never heard anything about it being censored, but the French comics code was weird because the members of the members of the American comics code were little old ladies and a judge. The members of the French comics code were Catholic priests and members of the French Communist Party. And they found something that they agreed on. No, American comics are bad for the French youth. For different reasons.
Who couldn't agree on that? That's just common sense.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Another comic I got this week. The Lapham's Under Heist #4. And this one just keeps getting weirder and weirder. Because as I've described it before, the basic plot started out. These guys are underground workers, or the guys in New York City who work in the subway tunnels and stuff like that. So they noticed, the one guy noticed a gang of criminals suspiciously being in the tunnels. So he was like, they're planning a heist. So he kind of tailed them, figured out when their heist was, and got some of his tunnel rat buddies. And they were like, what are they called? Warthogs? And they're like, hey, why don't we rip off these criminals? That way we'll end up with the money. You know, we'll do it when they're not looking. They didn't really want to confront them or anything. But of course, things didn't go right. Things went bad. But we've been getting, especially starting last issue, issue 3, And it's not like first they were just dropping hints. Now they're outright saying it. They may be dead, and they're caught in some sort of hell or purgatory. And the woman said, "Well, your hell would obviously be being caught up in your own scheme and having to take responsibility for your actions, because this guy's already found his own body." And what got really confusing with this issue is he's got a woman he's pulling the heist with, and he's got his girlfriend, and they're both involved with some bookie who wants money from them. So meanwhile, crazy things keep happening to him in this world. He keeps seeing one of the guys who pulled the heist with him kill himself over and over again. That was like these aren't even hints that they're in some weird afterlife nebulous thing. He's like, dude, this dude keeps killing himself over. And he's like, that can't be real. So at the beginning, he's with his girlfriend's in the hospital, and he did something to get his girlfriend in the hospital, and she's mad at him. But then the girl who he pulled the job with is talking to him, but we find out that the girl he pulled his job with is now the girlfriend's mind is in, and she's all confused. Like, this all has to do with the afterlife stuff. Meanwhile, the junkies, the bookies are still after him and have killed them once or twice. This issue has gotten so confusing as to what's actually going on, because it seems he's just kind of being forced to kind of deal with his failure of a heist over and over again. So I don't know how to describe this except really weird. It's not your normal David Lapham, which is about ordinary people. Well, it started out like your ordinary David Lapham, which is usually about ordinary people getting caught up in a criminal world and things just go wrong. Well, it seems in this one, same thing happened, except now the just go wrong keeps continuing because they're in hell or wherever they're in. So it's pretty amusing, but tough to figure out. Have you ever read any Stray Bullets, either of you?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
I had some issues, but I don't think I've read the whole thing.
Okay. It's really not even something you have to read the whole thing of, in terms of, it continues, but a lot of the issues are kind of done in one. He wraps up a story in one issue. But then it kind of continues in the next one. So it's like you can get a good taste of what Stray Bullets is just reading random issues. That's one of the things that's interesting about it. Interesting. I meet the most interesting people. You're working on something tonight, Wilson?
Yeah, I'm doing corrections on a book called Dark Storm, issue number 2. This is a book written by Kevin Grevaux, who is the writer and he is a director, but not on this particular thing. He did the that series, Underworld.
Underworld?
Yes.
With who's it? Kate Beckinsale? I may have watched the first one of that, but I don't think I've seen anything beyond that. So he's the director of those movies. Now he's writing a comic.
He's a writer of those movies, not the director.
Oh, he's the writer of those movies. Now he's writing a comic.
So he's working on he's created his own imprint called Dark Storm Comics.
Okay.
And he has quite a few books, and he's done a few issues of different superhero type stuff across many different genres. And then he has one superhero called Dark Storm, and so I'm putting together his trade paperback, or actually more novel, because these are all new stuff that he's putting out in kind of a soft cover, almost trade paperback like.
Okay.
Big graphic novel. So I'm doing some lettering corrections on them, and then just like double checking everything so it could go to print.
That's cool.
What I'm working on.
Cool. I don't think I've heard of them. Does he kickstart them or?
He is now.
All right.
Before they were kind of directly to Comixology when he was starting, and then he would print a certain amount of books to have at conventions and stuff like that. But now he's dipping into doing Kickstarters. The Kickstarter he just finished is called Jin, and that book I just finished putting together this morning. So I'm just waiting for final approval so I can send the final file to the printer. So yeah, so he does Kickstarters now too.
I just backed Jimmy Palmiotti's latest for the digital version, which was $20. And what it is he had a series that I think he did it with DC or Wildstorm called 13 Down, which I never read.
No, that doesn't sound familiar to me either. But he's put out so many projects.
Yeah. I think it was like 15, 20 years ago too. And they never got a chance to wrap up the series. So they had a special deal with DC somehow where they're doing a 14th issue to it to wrap up the series. So I think you can they're putting it out as an individual comic, issue 14. And I think they're putting out all 14 issues in a collected edition also on the Kickstarter. Or you can get the digital, just the 14th issue. What I did for $20 is I'm getting a digital copy of all 14. Just for the heck of it. I was like, you know what? $20 for 14 digital comics. Why not? It was one that I forget who drew it, but he's drawn the last issue. And it was one where Jimmy and Justin Gray were co-writers on it. Because they used to co-write a lot of stuff.
Right.
But I thought that was an interesting project too. Like I don't really know the comic. So I'm not a fan of it waiting for that last issue to come out. But I guess there were people. But an interesting way to wrap it up. But he was like, this is probably the only time it's going to be printed because we got special dispensation from DC to do it. So I imagine DC owns part of the copyright on it or whatever.
I'm guessing so.
Mm-hmm. But
DC likes to hold on to stuff.
Oh, yeah. They do. They like to buy stuff and hold on to stuff. What
is never going back.
What has DC bought over the years? Their first purchase was
All American
Charleston
Comics.
Books.
Well, hold on. Even before All American Comics, didn't they steal what's his name's stuff?
Yeah. So Detective Comics was a separate company from National Allied, and they stole National Allied from Malcolm Wheeler Nixon.
Malcolm Wheeler, that was his name, right? So the first thing they did was they were a little shady and got Malcolm Wheeler's Detective Comics. So the Batman, and was it before Batman or after that they?
May have been before.
Okay. So then they were, and then it was All American Comics, right? Which had Green Lantern,
Flash, and Wonder Woman.
Right. And what year that was?
That was in 45.
45 was that late? Okay.
45, because Max Gaines only kept picture stories from the Bible.
Okay, so that was all Max Gaines stuff.
Yeah, which is what he kept. He kept the Bible book and launched educational comics.
Okay.
EC.
Did they get anything in the 50s and 60s?
Okay, so they got quality in 57. they bought the rights to some stuff from
What came out of Quality?
Black Hawk
Black Hawk. Okay.
and a few others, one or
Yeah.
two war titles, and Plastic Man was part of the deal. But
Okay.
around that time, they bought a couple of romance comics from Prize Comics.
All right.
I think that was in '63, or maybe a little earlier. They bought. They bought.
Did they buy Fawcett or just Captain Marvel in the 70s?
They didn't. They licensed it.
They licensed it?
In the '70s. They licensed it.
Okay.
Because even though Fawcett agreed never to publish them, they still held the copyrights.
Okay. When did they buy that?
That would have been after Crisis.
Oh, wow.
Because Captain Marvel doesn't show up in Crisis.
Okay.
But they bought Charlton in '83.
Okay.
And they bought Captain Marvel and a few characters from Fawcett around '86 or '87, because around '86, because Captain Marvel shows up in Legends, and there's the first attempt at a reboot, because there's a there's a Shazam miniseries in '87. Written by Roy Thomas.
When did they clear the rights to the Thunder Agents?
That would be around the 2000s.
That was that late, I think, right?
Yeah.
When they put out those masterworks of the Thunder Agents.
Mm.
Yeah, they bought up, and of course, as Tit Goblin says, Jim Lee's Wildstorm.
Yeah, in '98. And something else around. No, I didn't.
And all Marvel's ever bought was Malibu.
Yeah.
To keep it out of DC's hands.
Yep.
Well, there was a period there in 1940 when the Martin Goodman had to purchase everything from Funnies Inc. To keep publishing Submariner and Human Torch, at least to have better control, because there are magazines that he put out which had Chesler studio material.
Harry A. Chesler.
Yeah, and then he buys all the stuff from Funnies, and they go work for Goodman. And then he doesn't buy anything, although it does steal some things. Goodman steals.
He's got no compulsion against copying whatever you're doing. Making his own version of it.
Because the Western Ghost Rider was stolen from Magazine Enterprises.
Okay.
I think they asked Dick Ayers to draw stories with the character.
They didn't own them?
Yeah, and now they own them. Why? Because we said so. But they put out a lot of stuff to secure trademarks, like not only Captain Marvel but also Daredevil.
Right.
That was to secure a trademark.
Human Torch.
Well, but Human Torch
their trademark.
Yeah, but that was theirs already.
Right.
There's a few of the horror titles of the late '60s and the early '70s. They were so they could steal the trademark as well. I'll have to check which ones. But they stole something from Eerie Publications, I think, or from Harvey Comics. The name of the anthology.
Another comic I got this week. This one came out a couple weeks ago, but I finally got my copy. Ice Cream Man 39 is this? 39. And I'd heard what this issue was about. This whole issue is a car crash. This whole issue takes place in the 5 seconds it takes these family to die. And it's exactly what you think it would be, but more. I mean, when you hear that concept, you're like, oh, they're really going to stretch out time here. You know that. But it was really well done. It was really horrifying. And I don't even know how to describe it except horrifying. As they just get hit by a big truck, and it describes what's going through their head, what's flashing through their mind, all this. A good horror comic here with Ice Cream Man 39. Worth the wait. Like, this was the one where they sent no A covers to my comic shop, so I didn't get my copy of it. And I was like, hey, what happened to Ice Cream Man 30? He's like, hold on, let me check. He's like, oh, I don't think we got any A covers in. Star Trek, the only movie franchise that DC had. I don't know. What is...
No, DC has licensed many cartoon stuff like He-Man.
That's right, they had He-Man.
He-Man. They were licensing, but eventually, because Warner Brothers owns them, a lot of those Hanna-Barbera stuff, that's like DC publishes those, but not own those characters because they pop up every now and then with other companies like Space Ghost.
Mm-hmm.
Was at DC for a short while, but then is now at Dynamite Entertainment. So I don't know if Atari Force was a licensed video game thing.
But yeah, DC doesn't do a lot of licensed stuff.
Not too many, no.
You don't see movie adaptations anymore.
Yeah.
Now that they'd be even easier to do than ever.
Some of them have been doing Kickstarters for them and wanting to just keep it within their grouping, I noticed.
What, for movie adaptations?
Yeah, not necessarily adaptations. I've been just because of me doing production stuff and kind of connected with Hollywood. There are people, directors and writers who are creating comic books,
right,
as using that as the pitch.
Right.
I've noticed that, and some have been made, I believe. Like, I think there's a book called Prey that was made as an indie film eventually.
Right.
I don't recall what would have been the last.
What was that one I just got like a month ago that was some indie film from the 80s and I didn't know it? A comic book.
Oh,
Devil Hunter, Demon Slayer, something like that.
Yeah. I don't remember the exact name, but yeah.
Yeah, that was a continuing, because I've seen that, like, continuation licensing continuing, but not movie adaptations, but what happens after the movie.
Right, I've seen more of those.
Well, what's the guy's name? Fight Club. The author who wrote the book did a graphic novel sequel to the book.
Yeah.
Fight Club 2, which I never read, but I forgot existed until this moment. But that's kind of interesting. The latest issue of Savage Dragon is also out.
Here's it.
Great cover.
And there's let me show you this one.
That's a very Harvey cover.
Yeah. And what is this one from? I recognize this, but I can't think of it. But in this issue of Savage Dragon earns its mature rating because there's lots of nudity in it. Because Maxine, his wife, decides, because Mickey Mouse was sexually assaulting her. And here we get a page of Mickey Mouse saying, "Dude, I thought she was a swinger. She made a sex viral video, which happened issues before. How come she's not a swinger?" So Mickey Mouse is complaining she and Savage Dragon wouldn't have a threesome with him. So then she decides to run the Beta Breakers run that's in San Francisco in the nude. So she proceeds to do that. So we got new and before some villain. And there was an interesting part. If you remember me telling you about last issue, there was those bunch of guys who came up out of the water and were attacking San Francisco. And Savage Dragon was like, "Oh, we're trying to clean up the ocean. Stop attacking. We're trying to clean up the oceans. And we're, clean up all the nuclear waste." And they were like, "No, we need more nuclear waste. That's how mutations like us get born. We're not getting born anymore. We need more pollution and nuclear waste." So the funny thing was that then that giant monster, that Leviathan, came out of the water and started stepping on the heroes. Well, this issue starts with a fastball special, and the Savage Dragon goes right through that Leviathan's head. And it isn't possible. And then they try to kill him underwater. They're really pissed at him, but he gets away. But then when he gets back to shore, he's like, all the people the Leviathan stepped on, he's like, "What? They're alive? I thought for sure they were dead." Punching a hole through that giant sea monster seems a bit of an overreaction in retrospect. I thought for sure that monster killed the rest of the team. So he's feeling guilty now that he probably killed that giant sea monster who didn't actually kill the rest of his team. Damaged him pretty well. But another good issue of Savage Dragon. Good stuff. What? Have you guys ever? How much Savage Dragon have you guys read?
I
The
would
early
say,
image?
I would say
Nothing
the first
considerable, but
25 issues.
yeah.
I would say I probably picked up the first 25 issues.
Paulo, you get some digitally sometimes, right?
Yeah.
I would say first 25 I must have picked up because I grabbed all the image books when they came out.
Right.
And I stuck with them up to a certain point.
Yeah.
And then it was like they slowly dropped them. And I think Spawn and the Savage Dragons was the last two that I stuck with for a while. Then started dropping them. And I probably dropped Savage Dragon before. And then picked up Savage Dragon again more fairly recently. I think that cover is a Fantastic Funnies.
Ah.
I think because I'm just trying to go by the solid color. And
Yeah.
maybe it's a Fantastic Funnies.
It's definitely something. I recognize it.
Yeah.
Fantastic Funnies. I can see that. An old comic.
Right.
Sleepy Reader says no shops around here carry Savage Dragon anymore. I wanted to sample the current issues before putting it back on my pull. Yeah, my shop certainly doesn't have issues hanging around the shop very much. So it's one of those books that you got to put on your pull. Or before putting on it, you can just ask them to get you whatever the latest issue is. Movies went to the theater and you had no idea when they get rental. So comic versions, probably pacified the fans. Now you get movies same day release on phone. So movie adaptation is overkill. Yeah, there was a time where you just didn't see your if you were a Star Wars fan, all you could do was read the comic. There was no Star Wars movie to watch once it left the theater.
Yeah, that was the only way to get any kind of Star Wars fix because they didn't really get into the books, the novelizations until late 80s.
Yeah.
Very late 80s. So the early 80s, the only way to get anything Star Wars was the Marvel books. And I got those. I wouldn't say I was collecting those. I was just getting them.
And if you wanted to see the movie again, you couldn't. So you got the movie adaptation.
Yeah. That was the only thing.
That was it. That was the only choice you had. It was before the day and age of even things on video.
Yeah.
Like those Marvel super specials that came out in the early 80s that were all movie adaptations. You couldn't, that was the only place to re-see your movie. You couldn't see it anywhere else. Yeah, it was a different world, wasn't it? A different world. Let's see, the last comic I got this week. I got 10 comics this week. That's a lot. Was Beyond Real. This is the one Vault book that in the very first issue, the woman gets into an accident. She gets hurt really bad. Her boyfriend dies. And that leads her to realize she's living in a simulation. And since she discovers she's living in a simulation, she wants the people running the simulation to bring her boyfriend back. So far, and so the issues has been her going on a quest to get the people running the simulation to bring her boyfriend back. But so far, there's no one really running the simulation is the problem. So she keeps entering these sort of different realms of outside the simulation, which are really well depicted in the art. This issue, I don't think the art was kind of as good in depicting it as the first 3 issues, but still it was nice. The art is very imaginative. It's different. Here's some wild double page because she's in this real strange part of the world. And like I said, there's no reality. It's not our reality anymore in this part of the world. It's some crazy, and she meets a digital version or something of herself from the future. So we don't even know what this is yet. Some demonic version of herself, which is new to this story. But I've really enjoyed the sort of imaginative art in this book. Very, very good stuff. I don't even know how many issues it's going to go. I don't think Vault does continuing series, so it's got to end soon. But we'll see. We'll see. Cover by John Pearson. Who is the artist on this? Oh, I think that there's 3 artists credited. Fabiana Mascalo, Dennis Menhir, and Jorge Corona. There are artists. And I think it's one of them, I don't even know who does, I don't know what the division of labor is, but it's really nicely done. Nicely done. Tit Goblin, did you see stuff like the TV movie Doctor Strange on TV when it aired? Yes, I did.
I did not when that one aired. I saw the Hulk movies. Those aired. I saw the Nick Fury one when that aired.
Yeah, I remember that was in the 90s. So
that was in the 90s.
I saw Howard the Duck in the theater, and I liked it.
I saw it on video cassette, and I enjoyed it.
So
I only read the comic adaptation of the '92 Captain America. The one with the Italian red skull.
How did I see that one? I think I saw that on video cassette. I saw the Captain America TV movies on television.
Did you get to see the rough cut of the Dolph Lundgren Punisher?
I saw it. When did
On video cassette, it would be.
I would have seen it on video cassette. Yes, I did see it. I don't remember what I saw, but I did see video cassette one.
Because before it was released, the Dolph. What year did that come out? Dolph Lundgren Punisher, 92.
91, 92, yeah.
Whenever it was held up. I remember they weren't going to release it or something like that. But somehow in the Marvel's offices, 1990 Punisher, was it that early?
I think so, yeah.
There was a rough cut video cassette going around. And it was funny because it's a rough cut, all the sound effects aren't in and all that stuff. So there were scenes where that took place I think it took place in New York, but it was a Japanese business building or something. And they had like Japanese paper walls and doors in it. And every time one of the paper doors would open up, the Star Trek door opening sound would play. Just because they put any effect in there, because it was a rough cut.
Yeah.
So it's kind of funny to hear that as these paper doors opened. But the funniest thing was, and I was so disappointed this line was cut out of the final version. It was Dolph Lundgren. I don't even remember what led up to it, but he said, "I punish the guilty because they're the guilty." And it was like, we were making fun of that line for weeks after, years after. Then when the final one came out, they cut that line out of there. We were like, oh. I punish the guilty because they're the guilty. All right.
Amazing writing.
Circular logic.
Why else would you be punishing them? Well, I remember I missed like the Thor, Daredevil, Hulk one. Like the trial, was that?
The Trial of the Incredible Hulk.
I think I may have missed that one.
I saw it on German TV.
I don't remember what year it came out, but I only watched the Hulk TV show on and off first run. Because first of all, you have to understand, people don't know what TV watching was like in the 70s. If you weren't there to watch the show when it aired, you just didn't see it.
Yeah. Might get lucky in the summer.
So if there was a show you watched, you had to like clear the decks and watch that show. And of course, there were shows that were like that for me, but the Hulk wasn't good enough for me to make sure I was there in front of the TV. I don't even remember what day it was on, what night of the week it was on. But it was not good enough for me to be in front of the TV for an hour as a kid. Same with the Spider-Man show. I remember watching was it a movie Spider-Man, like a 2-hour special? The Spider-Man show.
They took a couple of the episodes and made movies out of them. So you had the Chinese Web. Was one of them, and then the first few episodes were made as a movie to release it as a made-for-TV movie. Or the pilot ran that way.
Okay, so I may have watched that then, because I remember it being and that was enough for me. I didn't watch any of the other Spider-Man episodes because it wasn't any good.
No, it was not. It was definitely more. It was more than a product of its time and limitations. It was only filmed. A few shots were filmed in New York.
Yeah.
The rest of it was in wherever it was, and again, a superhero character, and you put it into the TV shows of that time period, and didn't bring anything else with it. They didn't even hire like a large guy to be a gangster, to
Right.
have him be the Kingpin.
Right.
Only time you ever had another powered hero another power characters. I think they did the clone story.
Mhm.
So he was like fighting himself, and that was it. No other superpowered character. It ran on CBS, the same as the Hulk. Close enough that they could have crossed over, but never happened. And that was it. It's interesting to watch now. The best one was probably the Chinese Web because he was fighting ninjas. That is about it.
Oh, those were the worst ninjas ever.
Oh yeah, but again, but the fact that he fought ninjas was the only thing that made it a entertaining is just such a harsh word in that point. But it made it something to watch. It's like, okay, this is interesting. It's but again, it's so much of a period piece. It's more of a detective show than anything. That happens to have a guy who dresses up as a spider. That's pretty much it.
And also, if you were to watch that today, you'd watch it in a completely different way.
Yeah.
In terms of like, if you were to watch that today, you'd put it on. You'd have your laptop in front of you. You'd be surfing the internet. Maybe you'd be looking up facts about the show.
Yes.
But if you were watching it in the 70s, all you would be doing is watching it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And if it was boring, you wouldn't watch anymore.
Exactly. And that's the problem because I have revisited a few times just for the heck of it to see how they did some stuff. And I'm watching it, and then it's more like, is that actress who I think it is? And go looking up.
Right.
So you do definitely watch it, and you do look it up, on the internet, and go, oh, okay, so this actress was the one that plays Isis. So she was in these other movies, but she was an interest in this series and stuff like that.
You entertain yourself when the TV's not entertaining you.
Exactly.
Which is a completely different way. That wasn't even a concept when I was a kid in the 70s. It was when you had the TV show on, you watched the TV show.
Watched it, a commercial came on, you ran to grab a snack or whatever, run back as quickly as possible, and that was pretty much it.
Sometimes
that was before 12-minute commercials.
Yeah.
Sometimes we were thankful for the commercial because they were more interesting than the show.
Sometimes, yep. I watched it with the hope of it would be interesting. Right. It would be good because I watched. I don't believe I watched the first run of it.
Okay.
But I do know that it was something that would play regularly on other channels to fill time on a Saturday or so. And I would run into it that way and sit down and watch the whole thing.
Like
same thing with the Hulk.
People talk about Battlestar Galactica. I watched the first 2-hour movie, was bored through all of it, never watched it again.
That was another one that would pop up every once in a while in reruns, and I would watch it, but I wouldn't. I could not say that I kept with it. Yeah. I enjoyed the episodes I saw, but it was just because, it was the monster of the week type of thing, so it wasn't. I didn't have to worry about. I watched that, or I have more of a nostalgia of that show because of the newer show.
Yeah.
Again, homework. Oh, they did that in the original. They just changed it and went this way. So it's like they're following the original story beats, but the new ones was obviously better. And I found it fascinating with when they did the storyline with the Pegasus. It's like, oh, I remember that storyline. I remember they found another Battlestar ship that they thought they lost them all. But, that captain was insane. And again, those parallels were more fun to go back and revisit the old Battlestar Galactica because like you mentioned, you watch it with different eyes. One of the funny things that I ever remember from the original series was that Starbuck, a pregnant woman, and a Cylon were crashed on a planet. and it took a while for Starbuck to convince the Cylon, there's no war here. We're stuck here. We're going to die. We have to help each other. And when the woman went into labor, it was like, what's happening to her? Oh, she's giving birth. There'll be another human there. And the Cylon's like, great, now I'm surrounded. So that was just a great line for a robot to say.
Yeah, like I said, in those days in the 70s, there was no waiting for a show to get good.
Yeah.
That didn't happen. First of all, it never happened.
Well, I saw Battlestar Galactica in 1991, and I kind of stuck through it because I'm 12 years old. I'm supposed to like things with spaceships, but yeah.
Yeah, I was like, no, I'm not even sticking through it. All right, well, we should say goodbye now. It's our closing time.
Time to go. Oh.
Time to go. It's closing time.
Mm-hmm.
La da 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 da. Something else.
Detective Osbornechek is back on the prowl.
All right. So everybody have a good
weekend.
night out there. Lasers and confetti to you all with some balloons. And we will catch everyone next week.
See ya.
I was all over Mute Next TV show. I saw that live. There's something to be excited about.
That was something to watch.
Based on an idea by Avi Arad. I still remember that at the beginning of it. Like, really?
Oh, you know, people totally forgot that a Generation X TV movie existed.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
I saw that with the bullpen, and I unfortunately said it out loud. I thought I was talking to myself, and I said, "This is worse than Fantastic Four." And everyone was cracking up, but I didn't realize how loud I said that. And I was an intern. It's like, I'm going to trouble.
All right. On that note, we'll catch you all next time.
See ya.
Have a good one. Take care.